So for these next two lectures, what's gonna happen is I'm going to talk about the material as we go through. When you get to the portions where you need to do listening, you will have to do those on your own. If I try to incorporate those into the lecture, then this video gets flagged for copyright infringement, so I'm not able to get the lecture to you. So pause the video when we get to a listening section, listen to it, and then continue the lecture on. You shouldn't really need to listen more than a couple of minutes to each piece, and that should be sufficient for getting you ready for the test. So where we left off, we were talking about Chicago style jazz. Chicago style jazz then develops into this idea of big band swing music. So big band music, the ensemble and size really grows. We're moving from singular instruments to multiples of each instrument. So we have multiple alto saxophones, multiple tenors, multiple baritones, trumpets, trombones. One of the excerpts you look at will have French horn. You're also going to have things like piano, drum kit, potentially bass guitar, electric guitar. You will definitely have upright bass. These groups are also going to be found in larger venues. They're employed by larger venues because there's more space to fill. Generally speaking, these big bands are going to perform swing music. And so this is going to be music that you can tap your foot to, you can get up and dance to. How this differs from jazz earlier is that jazz earlier is very heavy on improvisation, right? And so this jazz is going to be harder to dance to. Swing music may have some improvisatory elements. However, improvisation is not a focal point of big band music. When there is improvisation in big band music, more often than not, it's a significantly shorter section than what we've seen in other genres of jazz and what we will see in future genres of jazz. That also being said, a lot of the times with big band music and swing specifically, these improvisatory sections are written down. We don't find that in other types of jazz music. And so different people who lean into big band and swing are going to be Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey, Glenn Miller, and Count Basie, excuse me. So then go ahead and stop the recording here. Listen to these three different examples. Okay, so bebop jazz is kind of the antithesis of big band or swing. And so we see it develop after big band specifically, and it's a reaction to what big band is. And so they want the opposite of what big band is. So we're looking at people like Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk. Big band is very centered around the harmonies that they're creating. Everything is very consonant. And so we see this parallel with what we've seen in classical music. We have this romanticization of music, right? Everything's very melodic. And so with bebop, there is a very heavy emphasis on dissonance. And so if you think back to earlier lectures, dissonance is when these melodies, these notes don't fit together, or they create this kind of crunchy sound. They make you uneasy. So there's a big emphasis specifically in bebop. And again, this is opposite of what we have seen in big band music. So with bebop, then there's this form we generally link it to, and it's going to be this ABA kind of form. And so the A form is going to be the melody just simply stated. The B form is where the improvisation is going to happen most often. So this ternary form we'll often see as an ABA form or an AA prime form. The only difference between the ABA and AA prime is going to be that the B material is completely new. When we see A prime, it's going to be improvisation on material that we've already seen. So that's how we differentiate between the two. So you'll stop and listen to Straight No Chaser and A Night in Tunisia. Okay, so cool jazz is where things slow down. And so we see this idea of in classical music where we have this romanticization of music, right? Or the equivalent of big band. Then we have the opposite of, or avant-garde music. We have atonal music, aleatoric music like bebop. Then we have this amalgamation of them coming together, right? So, and this is effectively what cool jazz is going to be. So we see cool jazz in the late 50s and 60s, and this is going to be bebop, but it's a bit more restrained. It's not as tension building. So there's still going to be a very big element of improvisation within this, but it's not going, or it's going to be more melodic rather than what we find bebop being. Ensembles, generally speaking, are also going to be significantly smaller than big band, much like what we see with bebop. And so artists we look at are going to be Miles Davis, Stan Getz, Dave Brubeck, and the Modern Jazz Quartet. So you'll stop and listen to Yvette. So modal jazz is kind of interesting. We don't see modes really past the medieval and Renaissance. And it's this idea or how they made sense of the harmonies that existed before the Baroque, really. And so it's just a simple way of organizing different notes in a scale. And it's nothing like we hear today. And so they're taking these ancient concepts and applying them to jazz. And so we talk about notes fitting together, notes being dissonant, being consonant. Think about how this might change the implications for jazz. If something tends to lean more dissonant, if something tends to lean more consonant, how are these new modes going to influence things? And generally speaking, they may be uneasier to listen to just because for ears who are not used to listening to modes, for ears that are used to more modern music, this is going to be very different. And so people who specifically play into this are going to be Miles Davis and John Coltrane. Pay attention to that name, Miles Davis, because he's going to be important in a bit as well. So what I'm going to talk about a bit, but some composers do this thing where they take the way we speak and they put it into music. And so the interval, so what is going to be but is a major third. And so Miles Davis uses this interval of a third throughout this piece of music and he develops it into this piece of music. So it's supposed to sound like and be the rhythm of somebody saying, so what? Right? And so he's taking that interval and applying it throughout this piece of music. Okay, so then Miles Davis again pops back up. So fusion. This piece is quite interesting, or this album rather, Bitches Brew. It's supposed to sound like Witches Brew. Was put together by Miles Davis and a group of guys that he knows. And effectively, what happened was they sat in a recording studio for 2 weeks and just played. There was no basis for a melody. There was no basis for a harmony. They weren't trying to play any pieces of music specifically. They just kind of jammed. When they were done at the end of those 2 weeks, all of that recording went into production and they took these different recordings, jam sessions that they had and created tracks from them. And so that's how we ended up with this album. That being the case, this music is going to sound very aleatoric or random, right? Because there was no basis for any of the improvisation. And so this is very much aleatoric because they had no idea what they were doing either until it just happened. So go ahead and listen to an excerpt from Bitches Brew. Any of this you should also be able to find on YouTube or Spotify. Don't forget the Spotify playlist exists that you can listen along with this as well. So then more recent styles of jazz are going to be free jazz, which falls more in line with the fusion that we see earlier, this no basis of harmony or melody. Latin jazz is going to have a very, still going to have a very big improvisatory basis, but a lot of the rhythms are going to be based on South American and African rhythms, which we talked about before. And so you think about that polyrhythm or those polymeters where we have 2 against 3, 3 against 4, right? These will a lot of the times be placed or influence this type of jazz specifically. So then traditional jazz is going to again be an amalgamation of different ideas of jazz. I think I may misspoke earlier and tried to call cool jazz. Cool jazz is not the amalgamation. So erase that from your minds. Traditional jazz is going to be the amalgamation of different ideas of jazz put together. And so again, like with classical music, composers may have more romantic ideas, trying to mix them with more Baroque or classical. And so this is what jazz, traditional jazz is. We have these newer elements of jazz being mixed with these older elements of jazz. And so the author says that jazz was the first type of Western music to have improvisation as one of its central elements. This is untrue, just based on the conversations and the material that we've already talked about, specifically within the classical music canon, and specifically concertos. If you think back to the beginning of this chapter, concertos specifically have cadenzas written at the ends of the first movement, sometimes the third movements. These are big focus points in these pieces, right? And so this is a point for the soloist to show off their virtuosity, right? So this is kind of um, not controversial, but this is contradictory to what the author has written earlier in their book. Okay, so another big genre that we see improvisation is rock and roll. And for whatever reason, the author really focuses on classical improvisation, jazz improvisation, and rock improvisation. But our third lecture for this chapter comes from the other genres of music that he really doesn't focus on well. So, anyways, rock and roll is going to have a very big improvisatory part, or improvisation is going to play an integral role in rock and roll. And so if you think back to the conversations that we've had earlier, rock and roll comes from rock, which comes from the blues, which, you know, all the way back to spirituals. And so rock and roll is going to be based on the 12 bar blues. And so with rock and roll, there is going to be this potential for improvisation to be incorporated. We find that with more modern bands that they will put aside these chunks of music for improvisation to happen for different people in the band to improvise. And so these pieces that could be 3 or 4 minutes long end up being these gigantically long pieces, like 10, 15 minutes long, because everybody just wants to improvise, right? So these are all excerpts of pieces that we've listened to before in this class. Um, but you'll find that if you go back and listen, they also all contain improvisatory elements. Okay, so Cream is going to be a band that is a contemporary of the Beatles, right? So they exist around the same time, but there's a significantly heavier emphasis with improvisation with Cream than there is with the Beatles. And so this is going to be a band from the 60s and 70s. And we're going to have Eric Clapton, who we've already talked about, Jack Bruce, and Ginger Baker in the group. The group is going to be blues based, right? So remember that direct line between these two genres of music, and they're going to have significantly lengthy improvisatory sections. The Beatles do have some improvisation, but not near to the extent or the length that groups like Cream do. Okay, so a band that we consider to be a bit more modern is going to be Grateful Dead. And so, again, this is going to be another band with significant chunks of their music incorporating improvisation. Jerry Garcia is a figure to note because not only is he the guitarist for Grateful Dead, he's also the band leader and a composer. And so this group is rather prominent simply because of the length of their career, about 30 years. You look at other bands, specifically more modern bands, and they don't near last as long as that. And so there's this very big emphasis on jamming. And so in the improvisational world, that simply is just this idea of extending a piece of music so everybody has a chance to play, to improvise over it. It's something that we see within the old time world, specifically when we're talking about fiddling, um, and even not just old time within North America. We're also looking at old time within Ireland, Scotland, and those different types of improvisational fiddling as well. Okay, so then fish is going to be another group that we see. And so this is going to be again long improvisatory free form. And so Trey Anastasio is going to be again the guitarist, band leader, and composer. Fish specifically is very good about using visual signals or changes for improvisation while on stage. And so they are well known for creating their improvisations first and then creating their songs around it. This is similar to what Miles Davis does with Bitches Brew. But if you think back, Miles Davis doesn't actually create any music out of Bitches Brew. He just uses those recording sessions as tracks themselves. So Fish doesn't last quite as long as Grateful Dead, even though the bands are pretty contemporaneous with each other. And so, what's interesting about fish and then the old time world, specifically with fiddling or jamming, is this idea of visual cues. And so, when you watch this example, you'll see on the screen how colors and lights change. This is signaling to the band that they're moving on, that their time has passed. If you ever get a chance to watch an old time fiddle jam, you'll see the person who's ever leading the tune will raise their foot at the end. And this is to signal to the entire group that this tune is coming to an end, or this is where we're ending the tune. And it's absolutely fascinating to watch. So if you ever have the chance to go participate or listen to an old time jam, I would hardly strongly recommend it. Okay, so we are on to old time music at this point. So we'll stop with this lecture. And then for the third lecture, I will move on and start with old time music and world music.